But first, accountability. Accountability is something we were promised during 2 years of Democratic presidential campaigning. Those who screwed up, those who committed crimes over the last 8 years would be held accountable by our new government. That new government would be transparent and open and accountable to we the people in real time. That's a heavy promise. And it's a politically effective promise, as you can tell by the results of the election. And in the last day in Washington, we have started to see it in action in the form of Barack Obama's nomination of Leon Panetta to run the CIA. The Washingtonians who got soaked with the cold bucket of accountability because of the choice of Panetta, well, start with the senior folks inside the Bush administration who took part in crafting and justifying and implementing policies like torture and warrantless wiretapping. The message to them here: your involvement in those programs precludes you from a promotion into the Obama administration. Sorry, don't call us, we'll call you. President Bush was right about at least one thing. Elections do have consequences, and here they are. Also held to account, elected officials entrusted with oversight of the Bush administration who made the decision these past 8 years to not expose what was going on, to not bring criminal actions to light, to not use their powers of oversight to bring the off-the-rails intelligence community back onto the rails. Among those failed overseers, not the worst among them, but certainly among them, Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein of California. Because no one loves a bad track record like the United States Senate, just ask Joe Lieberman, Senator Feinstein has recently been promoted by her Senate colleagues to chair the Senate Intelligence Committee. She complained quite publicly yesterday that she had not been informed that Barack Obama was picking Leon Panetta to head up the CIA. No phone call, no text message, not even a tweet. When the news leaked about the Panetta pick, Senator Feinstein found out the way we all found out, from a news story. Her response, quote, "I was not informed about the selection of Leon Panetta to be the CIA director. I know nothing about this other than what I've read. I believe the agency is best served by having an intelligence professional in charge at this time." Today, the president-elect felt compelled to speak publicly in defense of his choice of Leon Panetta.
He brings extraordinary management skills, great political savvy, impeccable record of integrity. As chief of staff, he is somebody who, to the president, he's somebody who obviously was fully versed in international affairs, crisis management, and had to evaluate intelligence consistently on a day-to-day basis.
The Obama-Panetta-Feinstein story is being told, and to a degree played out, as an Obama transition controversy. It's a misstep. He didn't practice the proper Washington protocol. The drama, the peril. And you know, you could see it that way. Or you could see this as a power move toward accountability story, an elections have consequences story. More importantly, you could see this as a story about how the disasters of the Bush administration themselves have consequences. Keep in mind that Senator Feinstein voted in favor of every major Bush nominee who came up for approval before her committee, with the exception of Tom Ridge. She just missed that vote. Feinstein said of Bush's nominees, like CIA Director Porter Goss, quote, "The president should have the prerogative to appoint who he wants." Now, on the subject of torture, Senator Feinstein stepped on a hornet's nest last month when she seemed to leave the door open to it during an interview with the New York Times. Quoting the Times here, Mrs. Feinstein indicated that extreme cases might call for flexibility. "I think that you have to use the non-coercive standard to the greatest extent possible," she said, raising the possibility that an imminent terrorist threat might require special measures. Might require special measures? Why would an imminent terrorist threat require anyone to waste time on measures that notoriously don't work? After the ensuing firestorm those comments created, Senator Feinstein was forced to make it painstakingly clear through a series of statements that she does oppose torture, now she says, in all cases, which is neat, if not exactly inspiring. Senator Feinstein and her predecessor as Senate Intelligence Chair Jay Rockefeller, who also complained about the Panetta choice, they were the people who we, the people, had to rely on during the Bush administration for congressional oversight of the Bush administration on intelligence matters. We had them to count on, to expose, to bring to light criminal acts like torture, like wholesale breaking of the wiretapping laws, like indefinite detention without trial. These criminal acts perpetrated by our own government. It was under their watch. The consequence of that failure is Well, maybe it's that you don't get the first call when the incoming president is deciding who to select as his new CIA director. The implicit message is that you were on the wrong side of history on this one. You sat on your hands and you don't run this show anymore, no matter what party you're in. Accountability. Every one of us who lived through the Bush administration has a measure of it as an American. Those of us who lived through it as Americans who were also members of the United States Senate, we have a big measure of it to contend with. Joining us now is former CIA officer and TimeMagazine.com columnist Bob Baer. He's author of the new book, Blow the House Down. His previous books, of course, were the basis for the excellent 2005 movie Syriana. Mr. Baer, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Rachel.
Senator Feinstein said yesterday that the agency, the CIA, would be best served by having an intelligence professional in charge. Do you think she's right? What do you think of the choice of Leon Panetta?
No, she's wrong. We need an adult in charge. We need somebody with a political influence in Washington, a player, someone, an advocate for the CIA. We had George Tenet all these years. He was essentially a staffer and went along with the torture, went along with the WMD, the false reporting on that. We need a player, a former cabinet member that can deal with the president. He's a good pick.
You wrote in Time Magazine today that although Leon Panetta may not have the intelligence background, his appointment shows that Barack Obama understands the CIA's problem. What do you think the CIA's problems are right now as an agency?
It has to get through the investigations of rendition, of torture, of secret prisons, of missing 9/11, of missing Saddam's WMD, first of all. The place is flooded with contractors. It's completely politicized, demoralized. It needs a spokesman in this administration, and I don't think anybody's better than Panetta.
What specific qualifications, what specific experience do you think Panetta has that are relevant here, that would make him effective as CIA director? Obviously, he's very close to Barack Obama, and that means that he will have the president's ear. Beyond that, what do you see?
Well, I mean, it's important. He can go into the Oval Office, put his legs up on the desk, and said, "Mr. President, we can't do it this way." You know, a professional could never do that. And number two is he can stand up to Hillary Clinton, and State Department's a competitor to the CIA, and stand up to Bob Gates at the Pentagon, and that's very important. He's also not tainted with the crimes of the Bush administration. You simply couldn't have taken a CIA officer from the ranks, as good as they are. The number two at CIA is excellent, but you couldn't take him and then have him under investigation for the next 4 years and serve effectively.
The Bush administration, the president and the vice president themselves, beyond the issues of rendition and torture and warrantless wiretapping and all these other things, on the issue of Iraq, they are insisting repeatedly on their way out the door that the only thing regrettable about Iraq was that the CIA got it so wrong. They're calling it an intelligence failure and not any other kind of failure. Does the CIA see it that way? What's the political lesson of Iraq for the CIA?
Look, the information was cooked at the White House. The famous case of Curveball. It was a source with CIA never met, but the White House decided to use this information to justify an invasion of Iraq. It's nonsense. If the CIA had been left on its own, it would have told the president, "We don't know about the WMD." He could still have it, maybe he doesn't. Blaming this on the CIA is a cowardly act as far as I'm concerned.
In terms of the relationship between politics and intelligence, one of the things that is being called into question and discussed now because of the reaction from Rockefeller and Feinstein to the pick of Panetta here is how much good congressional oversight there is of the intelligence community. It has seemed to me, as a layman, as somebody who's outside this and just follows it as an interested citizen, that the Senate Intelligence Committee essentially acts as a junior member of the Intelligence Committee right now, that they don't do very much oversight. They don't bring much stuff to light or say no very often. How do you see it?
They never say no. We always used to say in the CIA, treat them like mushrooms, keep them in the dark and feed them manure. And the Senate and both the House have been happy in that role. I mean, they knew about warrantless wiretapping. Rockefeller didn't. He did nothing.
Do you think that if there are prosecutions, if there are investigations of some of these most egregious violations in during the Bush administration, do you think that members of Congress, members of the Senate, are going to find themselves on the pointy end of the stick for those investigations?
Well, I think they should answer where they were and why they agreed with this and what lawyers did they consult, especially on the torture. I mean, everybody in the CIA knows that torture does not work. End of story, even in exceptional circumstances. The Israelis figured this out. Everybody's figured out. It's a political tool. It's not a tool to get information. Now, where was the Senate and the House through all of this? They were, as you said, they went silent.
Bob Baer, former CIA officer, current intelligence columnist for Time.com. Thank you so much for your time tonight. Nice to see you.